So, man. The thing about vlogs is that the good thing about it is I can just be raw with you, the audience. And the bad thing is that I kind of feel like I don't know, tend to mumble about it a bit too much. But I want to get this out of the way. I feel like the United States is about to stupid itself into a civil war sometimes, or at least into another weatherman group. So, I continue to see people on the extreme left saying that we don't need civility, that civility is a form of white supremacy, or civility is not necessary, or blah, 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 blah. And they try to justify it with something along the lines of, oh, you know, you separated kids from parents at the border, even though the Trump administration's already signed a executive order to reunite them, which will probably be struck down by the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals because it already has been once before, in which case the executive branch is going to have to do what they do and actually pass a fucking law that will actually change things. And I apologize for cursing so quickly, but here's the thing, is that these same people who are saying that civility is pointless or is a tool of white supremacy, blah, 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 they didn't think for 5 seconds to hold Chuck Schumer's feet to the fire to pass a law that could have fixed this sort of thing permanently. That's my first point. And that this is a point I made on the podcast, and this is just something I want to get out of the way. For those of you that are on the political left, if you did not call for Chuck Schumer to support the legislation put forward by Ted Cruz in the Senate to reunite those kids with their parents at the border when they're trying to cross illegally and they're in holding, if you did not pressure them to do so, you are a hypocrite. You don't care about these kids. I should say it this way, to be a little bit more charitable. I have no evidence that you care about those kids, aside from your outrage. Because action-wise, you didn't do squat. The lawmakers that I trusted, you know, they were the ones who were trying to get it done. But I live in a blue state. Maybe I should have done the same thing because I live in a blue state. I should have called my senators. Maybe it might not have done any good, but at least on my conscience, it's a little bit clearer. But that's one thing that we don't really realize, is that there are 3 branches of government. They all have a purpose, and if we don't, allow them to complete their purposes, then what do you got? Second thing is that I saw a tweet from Nancy Pelosi acting like it is Trump that put us in this position of a lack of civility. I tend to disagree. I did a video some time ago, and I feel like this vlog is just me rehashing old things, but I think that they're more prominent now than when I said them at the time, is Donald Trump was a reaction to the left. After we had 8 years of George W. Bush, and the Iraq War, and the war in Afghanistan, the war on terror, the whole 9 yards, and all the other fun stuff that I remember, I'm not being serious when I say fun there. People were saying that Bush is Hitler and that we're in pointless wars and yada 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 yada. That was the narrative. That Bush is a warmonger, neocon warmonger, rawr, gay frogs. But that was the no more blood for oil, even though we didn't get any oil in the first place. It continues to go on from there. So after all of this, the world decides that it wants Barack Hussein Obama. I should say the world. The United States wants Barack Hussein Obama for the presidency because he's going to bring us hope and change, because that's what we need. Because the economy was tanking and there didn't seem to be any sort of easy fix for things. So hope and change. It's what the American people ordered for dinner, and that's what they got. Except they had to hope that something would change because Barack Obama was a terrible president. And what we got after that, culturally, was 8 years. 8 years of saying, That if you disagree with what the president wants to do and his glorious plan for the future, King Obama's glorious plan for the future, if you disagree, you are a racist, sexist, bigot, homophobe. No arguments, no discussion of the policy and whether or not it was good or not. You are a racist, sexist, bigot, homophobe. So I want you to imagine this. And this is the scenario that I put forward. Imagine working in an office building. And for 8 years of working in this office building, there is this mouthy individual that continues to say that you, as a worker, are a racist, sexist, bigot, homophobe. And he tells everybody else that. All because you want to take the business in a different direction that you find would be a bit more profitable and whatnot. Constantly calls you that for 8 years. How would you feel? In fact, just think about this in general. If you're somebody who's a progressive and you're watching this, imagine somebody lying about you, something that you're doing, for 8 years straight. Just imagine that. Imagine just somebody, or maybe you've had it in your own life. Somebody just lies about you constantly. Imagine that. Imagine that feeling. Imagine it dragged out and repeated over and over again for 8 years. Imagine seeing different controversies and then people in the media trying to say that there was no controversy when it comes to this presidency. And you're constantly, and again, anytime you question him, racist, sexist, bigot, homophobe. 8 years of that. 8 years of being told that your country is bad for whatever reason. But you love your country. But your country's bad because it wages war. Never mind that just about every country in existence has waged war. Never mind that there are countries out there that have worse sins than what America's done. You know, Germany and Russia and China and Cambodia and so on and so forth. Never mind that. America, they're the bad guys. Oh, and you know that old thing about masculinity? Well, it's not cool to be a man anymore. You got to be a woman. And there's nothing wrong with being a beta male. If you can't lift 35 pounds unassisted, well, that's okay. That's fine. Low testosterone. Oh, that's okay. That's fine. You don't need to be manly. Yeah, you do. Because you're a man. That's why you're here. But everybody else is telling you opposite. Or if you're a woman and you want to be a housewife, you want to focus on raising your kids, well, you're just giving into the patriarchy. Just giving into the patriarchy. You're just giving those men what they want. Never mind you want to raise your kids and that being a housewife is a tough freaking job that you technically don't get paid for. Oftentimes a thankless job if your husband's an asshole. But that patriarchy. And where's the patriarchy, you might ask? It's everywhere. But it's nowhere. It's nowhere. It's secret. It's hidden. Is it secret? Is it safe? Yeah, conspiracy, as Eric Cartman would put it. What's another good one? I've hit the politics bit. I've hit the feminist bit. I've hit, oh goodness. I can't even remember. There's so many crazy things, crazy narratives that went on during those days. Oh, just treating marriage like it's a negative. You know? Oh, political correctness is another one. You say certain things, you're not being politically correct. You think that there's only two genders? Well, you're transphobic. Do you disagree with what people do in the bedroom? Well, you're homophobic. Even though you really don't care about how somebody else lives their lives, you just don't agree. Imagine that. For years on end. Imagine being a business owner and being told to bake the cake. You must serve everybody who comes through that door, even if you morally object to what they're doing. It's an interesting thought. Now, personally, I think for most people that business decision, especially if you own like a restaurant or something, it's pretty rare that you're going to come into that sort of thing. If you own a dry cleaning service or something, but let's say you own an auditorium or something, and then you've got a satanic cult that wants to come in and sacrifice a goat, and you morally object to that. Well, but anyway, but imagine that. Imagine that for 8 years. That's not civility. Talking down to people, that patronization. And so, what does everyone else want in a leader? Well, they want the opposite of what Barack Obama is. Not just black guy to white guy, but they want somebody who's brash, want somebody who's bold, want somebody who wants to win. Who it's not enough to just win, though. You got to kind of rub their nose in it. You got to let the whole world know you won. You got to let the whole world know you won, and you're not ashamed of the fact that you won. And you're going to continuously remind people of the fact that you won, and the American people are not with you. And as such, we got Donald Trump. Donald Trump is a reaction to 8 years of Obama. And oftentimes, that's the way presidential elections have a tendency to go, is they tend to be a reaction to the last 4 or 8 years. You know, I think George W. in my lifetime, George, we'll just call him W, because I can't talk because I'm tired. But W was, I wouldn't say was a reaction to the liberals. You know, most people actually did want Al Gore to be president. He won the popular vote. But my point is that Clinton was a reaction to the Reagan era and George Herbert Walker Bush. Barack Obama was a reaction to George W. Bush. And Donald Trump is a reaction to Barack Obama and the cultural changes that went on during his presidency. And he is a sign that a good chunk of America doesn't want things the way they were before, because the way that they were before was terrible. Obama's presidency was a miserable 8 years for those of us who think beyond just progressive politics. Think about our checkbooks. Think about our way of life, our religious beliefs, and so on and so forth. Our general human rights, right to defend ourselves, right to religion, and so on and so forth. Those rights were consistently threatened. I mean, in the case for the Little Sisters of the Poor, Antonin Scalia leapt out of his chair to chew out the Obama administration's lawyer. And he deserved it. Because the administration's suing a bunch of old nuns over a right that they have. The hell do a bunch of nuns need abortifacients for? What the fuck is wrong with you people? But let's not pretend that Donald Trump is the guy who came along and killed civility. Donald Trump is a reaction to several years of civility eroding and then ultimately dying during the Obama administration. He is a response to every single progressive that ever called a man who is not homophobic a homophobe, who called every man Islamophobic who's not an Islamophobe, called everybody transphobic who's not transphobe, calls everybody a racist that's not a racist, and so on and so forth. He is a response to that, saying, look, if you're going to call me this, if that's the way your politics are going, I'm going to bring in a guy who's going to steamroll everything you built and cares more than enough about tradition and cares more than enough about the way things were to try to restore it. But we are going to stupid ourselves into a civil war, I think. Because now we've got people on the Twitter saying that there will be consequences for this. Consequences. Interesting statement. Gentleman on Twitter said, imagine a world where there are consequences for the things you say and do. Apparently that's horrifying. Good thing you never leave your house so you might face it. Well, that's an interesting statement from somebody who also does not leave his house. I'll not name him because it's the idea that I have an issue with. Because this is something that I've seen from lefty Twitter, is this constant thing that the harassment of members of the Trump administration, the things that Maxine Waters is calling for, are consequences. We know what that really means. Harassment, attacks, assault, so on and so forth. Here's the problem that a lot of people on the left don't think about, that Antifa didn't think about at the Battle of Berkeley, and these people on the authoritarian left who talk real big from their freaking computer screens, but aren't going to be the ones who end up getting hurt. And this is not a threat, mind you. I'm not saying this. What I'm going to do is predict the future. Call me Nostradamus for 5 seconds if you want. There's going to come a point where one of these crazy leftists is going to attack somebody for disagreeing with them. And that person is going to be bigger than them. And that little leftist is going to get the shit kicked out of them. That's a consequence. There's going to be a point in time, I guarantee you, where some of these protesters charge at a member of the Trump administration and they run into Secret Service and they get hurt. That's a consequence of an action. There will be a point where somebody attacks a Trump supporter and that Trump supporter has a gun and that person, the attacker, will get shot. That's a consequence. There will be a point where these little red shirt wannabes, wannabe revolutionaries, LARPing revolutionaries, will try to attack somebody at their home, and they will be shot, probably, and that is a consequence. And this video, for better or worse, is an explanation and a warning to the political left. You are going to stupid yourself into a civil war. Or you're going to stupid yourself into a lot of people getting hurt because you refuse to be civil. You refuse to see it another way, or you refuse to work with people on a common belief to make things better. Because here's the thing. Most people believed that we shouldn't separate parents from kids at the border if they cross illegally. I think that all parties could agree with that for the most part. In fact, like I said earlier, it was a Republican who pushed forward a bill to end it, that would permanently end it, and it was the left that refused to go along with it. You wanted Trump to play king and to use an executive order instead, to try to disguise what you really want in open borders. Well, here's the thing. We could have signed that first part and then had a debate about the second, but you refuse to do so because it's your way or the highway, and that is stupid. Civility keeps society from destroying itself. And if you are unwilling to be civil, at some point, you morons are going to get somebody hurt. Take 5 steps back and say to yourself, is this, to every single idea that you have, is this really worth somebody getting hurt over? If the answer is yes, you're wrong. You need to calm down, or else somebody will get hurt over something that honestly is not worth getting hurt over, because none of this is at all. And that's the problem that we have today, is people are willingly trying to kill civility, to try to make it so that their options are the only one. Folks, that never works, because there's always opposition. It's a fact of life. My name is Micah Curtis. Welcome to my crusade. Davis Fold.